Hey guys, Ricky here, owner of DoDContract.com. The US government is the single biggest purchaser of goods and services from small businesses, and they buy just about everything. If you want to discover what your niche is, see how much the government's spending in your category, head on over to DoDContract.com.
I would send that article out actually every unit I was in the Air Force just to kind of get a rise out of people. But whether it's true or not, I can't speak to it. So why don't we start with what is KEF robotics? What problem you guys trying to solve, and what are you doing in the world?
So I usually describe KEF at a high level as we're trying to use cameras to fly aircraft. So they're challenging to use because they actually bring in so much data, and then you have to interpret it with algorithms.
So, I mean, it looks like you have a really great past history, Carnegie Mellon. Maybe we could talk a little bit about, coming out of school and your experience, in the world and what led you to create KEF.
Yeah, absolutely. So KEF, we have our name because it's Carrie, Eric, and Fraser. They're just the first initials of the three co-founders' names. So, so that's through that we actually started using drones and kind of using cameras as well. I want to have like an adventure basically with my career. So I was working with engineers, and my role in KEF is to manage our engineering team and try and guide our strategy and make sure we have a good product market fit.
Okay.
So none of my educational background kind of led to that.
That was the first half of my Air Force career. So you had this kind of epiphany with robotics, right? Did you start it afterwards and then just go full force, or?
The lighting is very predictable years in advance. So the closest analog, the cheapest analog is to fly a drone.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're using cameras, we're flying drones, we're turning the GPS off because we're not going to have GPS on the moon.
Right.
And we're like, well, let's see who's doing the best work in this field. So we had some friction with our upper management.
Sure.
Let's go do our own thing and not have the thing kind of sitting above us. So it's like being in the right place at the right time and just getting a little bit lucky and also just sticking our necks out. So we knew that our technology was mostly applicable to the DoD. We don't really actually, even to this day, believe in the commercial drone market.
Okay.
We don't see a lot of people using autonomous drones. We don't think the FAA is going to let you do that. So we somehow found out about Special Operations Command, and actually I went on a tour of SoftWorks.
The latter half, traditional acquisitions, as you probably went on to discover, typically takes a long time, at least a lot compared to commercial timelines. Yeah.
So AFWorks, they release a open topic. And then so from that phase one, we ended up getting a lot of meetings with people in the Air Force, and we got a phase two. The phase twos are large. I think ours was 1.5 million, which for us was like that could support our whole team for 2 years at that point.
Yeah.
We knew it well from writing NASA SBIRs at our old company.
I think it's extremely important, and I'm not sure that we've talked about it on the podcast before, which is when you actually start getting into the solicitation writing.
So it's our general belief that almost every SBIR is written with I hate to even say this, but this is just my belief. And, company, you're all about minimizing your effort, or like really streamlining your efforts.
We talked a lot about the maybe the official way, of writing a proposal based on a solicitation. And what I tell everyone listening, and I tell my clients, is you got to live in the market research phase. So when the government wants to do something with autonomous flight or vertical lift aircraft, right? So they all kind of compete for what these topics are going to be.
They wanted to do a no hardware upgrade of an aircraft, and it had all these specific things that were like, oh, this is great. But we were nervous because we hadn't seeded the topic, and we know there's other teams out there that are competitive, and we're like, okay, well, the fact that this came out, like, we'll write to it. We did write to it. I mean, that's just one parable, but it kind of brought home to me, like, even if you're the perfect team with the perfect tech, don't expect to win unless you've done something.
Absolutely.
You have to be able to organize on all those multiple fronts.
Sounds like. So with the direct to phase two, just for anyone listening, you need somebody usually in the DoD, it would probably be someone at like an 06 level, maybe a GS, higher ranking government civilian, but someone that can, on the government side, that will at least sign a memorandum of understanding saying, hey, we'll if you're recommending a demo, then maybe they give you a space to do the demo. If they're, they might be providing some type of facility or like, some hours to donate to what you're doing.
One thing the SBI, our office did under AFWorks, which was smart, was they gave you this small dollar phase one, but it was an actual contract. And they tell you what to say to the people you're reaching out to. They say,
Right.
I have a contract with the Air Force. Can I get 10 minutes of your time to talk about the technology I'm developing to get a letter of support for phase two?
Okay.
Some of those were in DC. Some of those were in Dayton, Ohio.
So you had more than one sponsor for that.
His reach is really impressive, and he's really figured that part of it out.
You don't just win by making a submission.
Yeah, I think roughly we think blind odds 10%. So that means you have to write 10 proposals to win one. That's just barely going to cover your costs.
I would say 10% is being generous, actually. I'm not just winging this and slapping it together last minute, or somebody at the office that's going to be reviewing these. And by the way, somebody else isn't.
Yep, absolutely.
And not to exhaust the topic.
Everybody's being more fiscally responsible. The biggest I can find in the US. We're trying to get letters of support, or even just get like talking points from these people that we can say, this is the market that we're going to be addressing alongside the DoD. So that's pretty upfront for most people.
That's really great advice. Actually including that with your proposal, not something that a lot of companies are doing. And you're right, commercialization is extremely important. And just understanding that commercialization and dual use is part of this. Mm-hmm.
So, and then I look at it as, actually, we found the government to be so fast moving between SoftWorks, AFWorks, and the Army Applications Lab that in my, role as CEO, I have to find the cheapest dollars. You pay us X $1,000 for it. And then, the aircraft now has a new performance upgrade that it didn't have before. You can navigate without GPS.
Interesting.
So, to date, we've just advanced entirely on research grants. But that's the valley we want to get across. And it's going to take us, at least 3 years to get off SBIRs. And maybe we never fully do.
Yeah.
Because we could still use them to fund new advancements in our tech in this key area or that key area, and get, kind of like that market validation before we do internal research and development.
So now you have all of these customers, both defense and, government defense and commercial, which are putting money into your company. And then by the time you get it, you might need something else. And it's like that you're constantly playing this game where I feel like the benefit's better for both the government and the business if you have this dual use continuing model. And then the licensing model, certainly, like I said, that can provide you that sustained funding over years. But you pick, from the F-35 to, kind of more of the ancient aircraft that we've flown, like the B-52 coming to now. But typically, an OEM, one of the big defense contractors, would put that aircraft, they'd win the contract, they'd put it together. And if the government wanted to make any change to that system, put your software on, for instance, nope, it might cost 10 times as much to get a product that's not as good. So they can build things according to those parameters. Mm-hmm.
And you should have a competitive market for vendors who can meet the needs of that interface.
I think there's a lot of different ways to do that. And then I just want to say one thing for anyone listening, when you think about the licensing, I think maybe you were alluding to it, which is sometimes the government doesn't want to buy software licenses because if the government, if it's not a program of record and it's not like this funding where, hey, I have 5 years of funding to put KEF on contract, right? So let's say my office has 15 million in Fallout funds, and I know that KEF's at the top of my list. I need to get this on a certain, maybe whether it's a demo or whether it's on a weapon system or, whatever the exact project is. I don't know if I'm going to have it next year. So we've talked a lot. What's next for you guys?
Is that transition to our first licenses. So we hope to be doing that October Q4 of this year. Well, I'll give you my email if that's okay.
We don't have 5 million people listening.
But yeah, we're a small business. We're easy to get a hold of.
It looks like an awesome website. And
doing great.
I'll put, she needs a raise, by the way.
All right. Well, you do get your ice cream now, buddy. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this episode. Please leave a review, and we will see you next week.